the second biggest monkey head I've ever seen.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
The definition of insanity is...
Hello and welcome to episode 29 of PvA Radio. I'm one of your hosts, Luke Croft. Joining me for the first time in what feels like forever, freelance gaming journalist and journalist for what is it? What
Alexandria Times.
The Alexandria Times. That's what I should have just went with my gut instinct and gone with it. Cody Mellocline, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. It's good to be back after 2 weeks.
Yeah, seriously, man. It's been a while. This is PvA Radio. If you weren't aware of the show that you were on, need to get you reacclimated here. Also joining us today, lover of hot chocolate, Larry Hunt.
It's true. I do enjoy a good hot chocolate.
So right before the show, he's like, "Hey, do I have time to go make a cup of hot chocolate?" So do you do anything special to this hot chocolate? What's your process here?
Well, you heat the milk in the microwave because you don't have time to do it good, and then you drop some powder in and stir it.
Okay.
Do it good.
This is PvA Radio. We get together every week. Each of us brings one of the biggest gaming news stories to the table, and we have an in-depth discussion about it. It's like a collaborative audio feature article, your cafe, if you will. And Cody, what do we tell people to do with that?
Tattoo it right on your forehead.
Yeah, just tattoo that bad boy right on your forehead somewhere. So a little bit of housekeeping. Let me first start off by apologizing to both my co-hosts here and also to our listeners. I've been dropping the ball a little bit recently in a couple areas of the podcast, and that is because my life has been one big, crazy, insane mess over the last couple weeks. So for those of you who have been listeners all the way back to the Player 3 podcast, you know that I own a business, an escape room business. Well, we decided several weeks ago that we were going to close down our business, and there's a whole rigmarole that comes alongside a decision like that. And so I've been kind of neck deep in all that, alongside some other drama that's been going on in my life. That's all set to the side now. We're going to be bringing some improvements to the stream over the next couple weeks. I'm going to get back on the ball about, just being on time with everything. And every week over here on twitch.tv/PvA Radio at 9 o'clock on Mondays, you can see our three beautiful faces. Hopefully Cody will decide that we're worthy enough to join more than once a month. So.
It's probably better to look at Geralt's face than my face, though, to be honest.
We should just download one of those programs that replaces your face and just tracks you, like one of those animojis, and it's just Geralt talking to us. Yeah.
I'll do my best impression if you do that.
All right. Wait, you have a Geralt impression?
Absolutely not.
Oh. You're just naked.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, in a bathtub.
All right, guys.
An option? Can we stream that way?
Dude, male nipples are allowed on Twitch now.
Yeah.
Well, I'm only showing up from the neck up, so
nipples are also
spent suds.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, nipples are also allowed during the Super Bowl halftime show. We learned this year too. So, new rule change coming in. All right, guys. It's been a couple weeks. Cody, what have you been playing over these last few weeks? If you've even had time to play video games, I feel like I haven't seen you on.
Yeah, I haven't had much time, but I've been playing pretty much exclusively Apex Legends. And I've been loving it. I've still only won once, but I've gotten close several times. A lot of second places. Yeah, I'm just loving it. It feels every game. It feels like I actually could win, unlike every other battle royale game I've ever played, which is nice. It's very well. I think it's welcoming in all the right ways, which I really appreciate. I've been playing a lot with my brother and then a friend, and I played with you a little bit, Larry, as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just having a great time with that game. And apparently, as we'll probably discuss, it seems like they have a really concrete idea of where they want the game to go, which is nice to hear. I think they have 4 seasons laid out, which is awesome.
Oddcast wants to know if this is another stream that doesn't pay attention to the chat. Yes, we do. However, we're also doing a podcast. So he says male nipples are only allowed when you're working out, outside sunbathing, or close by water. I don't know what the proximity is. Maybe 5 miles inland, you have to put a shirt on. So
I could get to the coast.
Well, I almost always have a bottle of water on me, so I can constantly go shirtless. I walk into convenience stores that say no shirt, no shoes, no service. I'm like, it's cool, I've got water. And also, Oddcast, I gave you a laughing while crying emoji, so I paid attention.
yeah.
There you go.
PvA stands for Player versus All. It's a website where I'll literally only talk about Overwatch League now. So that's what that has become. All right. Who are you maining in Apex Legends?
Bloodhound. But I've played a decent amount of Lifeline, I think her name is, as well.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But I think most of my kills are on Bloodhound.
Cool. Yeah, I started maining Lifeline just because like I was watching streamers, like former pro gamers who had hopped on the Apex Legends train, and right there in the first few weeks it was like everybody's got to pick Lifeline. She's just like her abilities. But then it's like you have to live long enough to get your little heal teleport thing, or your heal like robot out, and I don't do that. So so I've been playing Wraith because Larry has moved on from the Wraith love.
Oh yeah, Larry's
I
all
love
about Gibraltar.
It's just there are too many drawbacks to her abilities. So you go into this other dimension, you can't be hit, but your enemies can still see where you are with this little glow, but you can't see where they are. And I think it should be like one way or the other. Either you can see each other through the dimension or whatever, or no one sees anybody. Right now it's just too far stacked. And you learned the hard way the other night that when you're making your tunnel with your ult, you are in fact still visible and shootable.
Yeah. Yeah, we were, and it was during we were one of the last two groups when this happened too. I was like, all right, I'm going to get us in close over there, and just started teleporting my way over there. And I was like, how am I taking damage right now? I thought that this ability allowed me to just move freely, but I was incorrect. Also, the fact that the enemy can come back through the teleporter as well with you. We learned that the hard way as well.
Yep.
As you can tell, I'm not very good at the game. Larry hard carries me when I'm playing.
Dude, it's the first battle royale game that I am pretty good at. My friend Sam and I were playing the other night, and our random got downed, and we were in this little compound, and we just kept getting charged one team after another, and all said and done, we came away from it with 10 kills between the two of us.
Oh my god!
Like, we just killed 2.5 squads, I guess.
So
amazing.
So Apex has taken over all of your blackout time.
Yeah, pretty much. It helps that my brother has switched over to Apex as well. He was pretty much the only person I played blackout with. So yeah, I'm loving Apex so far. I started replaying The Last of Us. Mostly just because I actually started dating this girl, and so she was interested in video games a little bit, and I tried to find an entry point, and I think I chose the wrong one.
Wait, hold on. Let's back up for a second here. Cody leaves us for 3 weeks and comes back with a girlfriend. What is this?
Yeah.
What is this breaking
Well,
news?
no,
I can't make the podcast.
Let's not put
I've
labels
got
on it yet.
interviews.
Let's
I'm
not
sorry.
put labels on it. I also I did have an interview
Yeah,
for work.
I've got an interview.
Fuck you. I already get shit from my family for this.
Because you haven't called him in 3 weeks.
Yeah, probably.
Nah, well, if there's no labels, no congratulations in order yet. Text us when there's a label.
Yeah.
when it's
early.
Facebook official.
Oh
For
my
the man
God.
who doesn't have a Facebook.
Yep. I have a Facebook. I just don't go on.
Wait, you do?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
I actually blocked you though.
That's completely understandable. All right. Anyway, back to your story. Not the right entry point for her. So, what was her reaction to seeing this?
Oh, she was devastated after the intro.
Wait, like devastated because, like, emotionally, because
Yeah,
of how
emotionally,
awesome the
yeah,
opening
yeah.
is. I feel like that's a perfect way to start. Then.
I thought it was a bit heavy.
Oh yeah.
I just don't think she was expecting it. She's like, why did the girl have to die? And I'm like, I don't know how to break this to you, but it's sort of the inciting incident for the rest of the game.
Well, so are you gonna keep playing it for her?
I don't know. She seemed interested enough. I'll probably just keep on playing it myself because I just remembered how good that game is.
Yeah.
So I'll probably still I got to bump up the difficulty a little bit, but I'll continue playing through again.
All right. Awesome. Larry, tell us about Apex Legends.
All I play is Apex. There is nothing else anymore. I don't sleep. I don't eat. There is only Apex.
He's not
quite
kidding.
that bad, but it is the most like into a game I've been in a really long time.
We didn't play Overwatch once last week as a result of Apex Legends, which I didn't get to play much of anything last week. But
well, this weekend I also had some stuff with work, so I didn't really have time to do anything. I still stayed up.
Work. He's got a job.
But yeah, I'm still loving it. I've only had one incident where I'm like, that's bullcrap. Game runs well. I just got shot through a door. It was crazy. The end.
Great story.
Nice.
I'm mostly playing Caustic. I play a lot of Gibraltar too, but Caustic's my favorite. But the problem with him is his gas trips your teammates up, and I feel bad. Like I can roll in with my shotgun and pop ult and get a bunch of kills, but my teammates just get to groggily stumble around while I do it, and it just makes me
sucks.
Yeah, is there I know there's an item you can pick up that allows you to see through it. Is there an item that you can pick up that allows you to be unaffected by it?
No.
That's just bad design, in my opinion. In a game that relies so much on like teamwork, and battle royales are all about like staying in close proximity to your teammates as well. To have an ability in a game that keeps you from being able to be close to your player at what is probably one of the more pivotal moments of a match. I don't know. That's odd design to me. Yep. I don't live long enough for that to bite me in the ass ever, but I can imagine if I did, I would be pretty frustrated by it.
Yep.
My list is pretty much the same. I've been playing a lot of just like quick play on PC for Overwatch. I decided to take this first season of me playing PC Overwatch off, just so that I can get the mechanics down. I'm starting to feel really comfortable, but so this week I was like, I feel like my sensitivity is a little high. Like I was having, because when I first got my PC, I was all like, well, PC gaming, it's all about, your twitch reflexes, and having high sensitivity is like part of the advantage is you can have high sensitivity and really good accuracy still. But the more I was like watching other people play on streams, and the more I was playing myself, I was like, I feel like this is super high. And so I started looking up what like pro divas were playing at sensitivity wise. Oh my gosh, guys. I had my mouse at like 2400 DPI with my sensitivity at like 60 for my mouse, and Space, who's the diva player for the LA Valiant, it's like 800 DPI on like 11 sensitivity. I was like, and I've like my play improved greatly after making the change. I was like, I'm sure that there are players that play with the ridiculously high sensitivity, otherwise there wouldn't be that setting. But I am not one of those players who can do it. So, been doing that. Played a little bit of League this week. You weren't on the podcast last week, Cody. My brother-in-law has actually like been playing League for like the entirety of the 8 years that it's been out. And so he got on with me and was showing me the ropes and like teach me the basic strategy and how to use the abilities and stuff like that. And then I tried playing one game by myself, got instantly flamed by my team for sucking. So I'm having fun with it, but I'm still like super intimidated by it. So I just get on and play against bots mostly while I'm still learning the mechanics of it all. Right. And then just playing Apex Legends with Larry and being shown how bad at video games I am, truly, and how much better Larry is than me. It feels like back in the heyday of, well, not the heyday of Halo, but back when my skills started to deteriorate and Larry's didn't in like the Halo 4 days. That's how I feel playing Apex. I just feel bad that I'm weighing him down.
Dude, I don't care. It's not a super competitive game for me.
Yeah.
I only care when I almost said you, but I don't mean you specifically. General you. I only care when people like are just real dumb and make real dumb decisions.
I try not to do that because I am good at Overwatch and I get really mad when I get teammates like that. So I try not to do that for other people because it is a team-based game and my dumb decisions ruin it for everybody.
Like Sam and I had one game last night where we hit the drop ship and immediately got knocked and both fell off, and our teammate came and revived us. So we're weaponless. We got a couple like weak weapons, and we had the opportunity to sneak across this open field. No one knew we were going through there, and our random decides, you know what? My teammates have little submachine guns. Now would be a good time for me to fire across the field at the people that don't know we're here. It got us all killed.
All right,
Don't
never
have to
mind.
take every fight.
Never mind. I do make dumb decisions. All right, Larry. Looks like you've got a follow-up in here for us. Lay it on us.
All right, so just a little bit more Apex Legends stuff has been coming out, and I had this pulled up and ready to go, but now I've got lots of pop-ups instead. Cool. Okay, so
Modern web design.
the list of a list of the next 11 characters coming out for Apex Legends has dropped, so that was pretty awesome. And I only included it because we were talking about, you know, this game. It's been a big hit right out of the gates, but hopefully they've got a solid plan in place to sustain that. And I think this is really indicative of the plan that they've got going. And I just wanted to read this list of names real quick because the names of the characters in Apex Legends are pretty descriptive of what they do, so you can get a pretty good idea of what kind of characters are coming your way. We got Nomad, Octane, Prophet, Husaria, Jericho, Rampart, Blackout, Crypto, Rosie, Scunner, and Watson.
With 2 T's.
With 2 T's. And Watson and Octane are the first ones coming up, and I think it's pretty much been confirmed that Octane is going to use the stim pack ability from Titanfall 2, and Watson will be doing electric traps. So that's pretty neat.
It's crazy because it takes us literally like 4 months to get the name of one new character in Overwatch, and we got a drop of 11 new names coming to Apex Legends.
Which we have, by the way.
What's that?
Yeah.
There was a new trailer dropped today for the Overwatch character.
Yeah, I did see that. Another healer, which we don't need to get into that, but
yeah.
another healer, because healing, there's not enough healing in the game right now.
Definitely.
Big eye roll. Anyway, back to the game people care about, Apex Legends. Yeah, I think this is cool. It's cool to see that they have this mapped out. Is there did they mention a window?
No,
I haven't seen one.
This was kind of a leak.
Yeah,
Okay.
This wasn't an official announcement.
Okay. Yeah. Hopefully, like, we get to see these 11 characters kind of trickle out over the next like year and a half, hopefully.
Yeah.
I don't think in a game like this, especially when you're trying to establish yourself in trying to establish yourself in an esports scene, which this game is already trying to do, like, you don't want to add too much too fast and disrupt the meta and just have all these opportunities to kind of break the balance of the game. So I imagine that this is spread out over a significant amount of time. And speaking of like new content, we got new content this week, didn't we?
Yeah, we got a new gun.
Yep, the Havoc, and it's pretty cool because depending on what attachment you get, it can either be functionally a really devastating machine gun, or it can be turned into a mid-range weapon.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Is your daughter joining us for the podcast?
I don't know what's happening.
Life as a dad. I will say, I think if I love the rollout schedule for Rainbow Six Siege, that they kind of do it on a quarterly basis, so you get 2 characters kind of every few months. Which is, I don't know, it allows the pro players to kind of get used to it and adjust to it, and allows people like me to kind of adjust to the new balance and the new meta. And it keeps the game fresh, which is nice. So I don't know. I'd love to see them kind of do a similar release schedule with this.
I'm hoping that this huge cast of characters is indicative of them moving toward having bigger groups on a bigger map as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah, that would be cool. I think one of the things I really like about the character design in Apex Legends is like your abilities feel impactful for you, but they don't feel impactful for like super impactful within a team fight or anything like that. Like they can give you little distinct advantages, but it really requires you to know how your abilities work. I don't feel like there's any character who has an ability that's just like super spammy and OP. They're just little add-ons because it still relies so heavily on being mechanically skilled at the game. You can't really cover over that by picking a character that just has some abilities that you're really good with. And I just appreciate that, and I hope that that's something that as we see these 11 characters roll out, continues to be like a conscious design choice for them. All right. Let's move on to our topics. Cody, you're going to kick us off this week with your topic. What do you want to talk about?
All right. Well, now that we've talked about an EA game that has done incredibly well and everybody loves, let's talk about Anthem. So Anthem released February 22nd, technically. And I say technically because it released probably 3 times before that. I pulled up the little chart here. The little chart, I mean, massive chart that's way too confusing to read. The game technically launched early access on February 15th. That was for premium access holders, and then there was a first trial where you could play the first 10 hours on the 16th, and then it finally launched for everybody on the 22nd. And we've sort of talked about how confusing this schedule was in the past, but I do want to talk about how critical it was in how the game, basically the game's release week woes, because the game has, anyone who's been looking at Twitter or pretty much looking at any gaming site has seen reviews for this game at this point. Reviews are both critically and in the community, I guess, a little bit less than stellar. Probably less people are less excited than EA and BioWare were hoping for a number of reasons. But yeah, overall, let's talk about this schedule and why it's sort of backfired for EA here and for BioWare, I would say. Why do you guys think it backfired? There are definitely a number of reasons here we can talk about, but let's just dive in. What do you guys think? Why did this release strategy backfire for EA?
There are 2 things that I think really played a big role in this. One is this staggered release schedule emphasizing different platforms is obviously geared toward pulling pre-orders and specifically selling the game on specific consoles. But fewer people are pre-ordering these days. And it wouldn't have been a big deal if the game had launched and been excellent, no problem. Everybody wanted to play it because the first group gets it and it's just going to drive sales. But when it hits the first console and is received in a less than stellar way, that's going to have people second guessing it. You may wind up with a few canceled pre-orders, and you're going to be less likely to pick up day 1 sales for sure.
Yeah, I also think that this kind of staggered release schedule in a gaming culture that is so hungry for content around games that they can't play themselves, when you have a staggered release schedule like this, you start to rely super heavily on the opinions of other people and formulate your opinions about a game before you ever get hands-on experience with it. And we can argue the merits of whether or not that should, like, that's a valid way to formulate your opinion, but that's not the discussion that needs to be had. The discussion is that that's the way that people work. And when you allow certain groups of people access to your game at certain times ahead of other people, the people who are at the latter end of that release window are going to formulate all of their opinions about the game based off of the things that people that got access to it at the beginning are writing. And so it's this snowball effect. Like, if you're not releasing, like Larry said, this perfect product out of the gate that has like all of the bases covered, the news outlets and reviewers and gaming outlets, they're going to pick up on the negative storylines, especially because, number one, it's a service to future consumers to highlight the things that are negatively impacting a game, but also it drives much better traffic than, oh, Anthem's a great game, right? So like, I think there is like a internal strategy for these staggered releases, and I think it has a lot to do with server capacity and those sorts of things, and it also has a lot to do with selling subscriptions to like Origin Access Premium and stuff like that. But I think that they fail to cover themselves when it comes to just the gaming culture at large, where like with the release of Apex, where it was like we had almost no lead into this thing outside of the leaks ahead of it. Everybody got to formulate their opinions about the game all at the same time, rather than relying on a certain subsection of gamers. And it amplifies itself even more because people that are playing this on EA, on Origin Access Premium, are like the hardcore fans. These are people who want to love the game. So for them to have negative opinions about it, I think just echoes even harsher for the actual finished product itself.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you guys have said. I think if this game had been excellent, you would have had kind of like in the way that Marvel usually allows, they like have their embargo break a few weeks out. You have like 2 weeks of solid positive reviews and positive press. That's great. But in this case, you had a week or even more, depending on if people had gone to demos at E3 and stuff. You have more than a week of either negative or just questionable press. And a lot of that was coming from, not even just from the game. Like, you had the Microsoft exec who made the bold decision of attacking a reviewer who...
Hey, I have that pulled up.
Yeah, he was accusing him of not having enough knowledge to review the game, which is... Maybe it's just the fault of the game. That's probably not the best way to approach marketing this game that you're kind of putting this massive push behind. So you have that whole solid week of kind of negative press roiling around it. And then I also think, like Luke, I know you've mentioned this before, how important it is to have like a moment for your game. And Apex had a moment, and it's still going strong for sure, but it had like, there was a meteoric impact it had because that was the release of the game. Everybody was talking about it. Here you have a week of discussion, and people, myself included, start to get burned out on it. Like, Anthem just sort of sinks into the cultural firmament, and it just becomes another game that's been around for a week even before it's actually officially launched. Whereas if it had just a single or even maybe just 2 releases that you could measure on a calendar without having to pull up a fucking spreadsheet, it would have more of an impact, and people would be talking about it a little bit more excited because they wouldn't be overexposed to it. So I don't know. I think you risk kind of overexposing your game in a case like this. It's just kind of all people are hearing is Anthem. YouTube ads are blaring throughout the week that people are already playing it, even if you aren't playing it.
Yeah, and the problem compounds itself by the fact that there were all these betas that took place really close to that window. So it doesn't just feel like it's been out for a week. I feel like people have been talking about Anthem for a month and a half.
Exactly, yeah.
And I did have the Mike Ybarra tweet pulled up because I wanted to read it.
Please share it.
So it was PC Gamer's. He was sharing PC Gamer's article about how Anthem's worst section had already been improved. So like, there was, I don't even remember how big the day 1 patch was that released 3 days before the actual day, what was apparently day 1. Regardless, outside of this scuffed timeline, Mike Ybarra tweeted, "This was actually very easy to do. Amazed at the whining. One reviewer, not the below, reviewed the game, yet in the review cited that he didn't even know how to do a combo. Embarrassing to review with such a lack of knowledge."
Yeah.
Larry, I'm actually going to turn it over to you because you made a great point about this when you and I were just talking about this privately, and I don't want to steal your thunder.
I don't remember what I said when we were talking about it, so if I don't say that again, feel free to say whatever it was. But it's never the person's fault that they don't know how to do the thing going on in your game. like, like great job highlighting the fact that you didn't care to teach anybody how to play your game, and it's fine to. No, it's not fine. What you've done is you've assumed, well, everybody's played a game like this, they'll figure it out, and that's not necessarily true.
Yeah, and that's exactly what she said to me. And this tweet is so transparent in that you can see right through it, not transparent as in Mike Ybarra is being like really honest, because Microsoft has entered this marketing partnership with EA for Anthem, and obviously an executive at Microsoft wants as much positive press around the game, and so the walls start to feel like they're closing in when you have this week window where people can play the full release. And the point of it is like, people wanted to say like, oh, the game doesn't fully release until February 22nd or whatever the date was supposed to be. But it's like, the game went gold before then. The people the game that people are playing on EA, on Origin Access, and all this early access stuff is the full release game. It is the gold version of the game. Just because it may not have the day one patch or whatever, this is the full release. And it's not whining when somebody spends $60 on a game and it completely underdelivers what their expectations are in really like objective ways, right? So the model is weird. Mike Ybarra's tweet is weird. This whole game just has felt weird ever since like the weird EA showing at E3 last year, or EA Play or whatever they call, like where they were like, hey, we know this game releases in less than a year. Here's a bunch of concept art. Like, I don't know. This is a game I wanted really badly to succeed, and it just does not look like it's in a position to do so.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's another game, live service game we've seen recently that's going to struggle to make a comeback. But I do, before we kind of pivot to that whole conversation, I do wonder about this release schedule and this kind of release strategy in general. Is this just an idea that's doomed from the start, or would it succeed? Would it have succeeded if this game had been excellent, or would it still have suffered from some of the same problems of overexposure, confusing your audience? I'm genuinely asking because I don't actually know.
Can you think of a... Oh, go ahead, Larry.
My feeling is that it would have been tolerated, but I don't think it was ever going to be like a good thing. Just anything that's going to have it's like you were talking about earlier. If you're going to make this big impact and be talked about for a while, you're going to do it. It's very rare that you have something that slow burns its way. And when that happens, it's because it's something that's really excellent, right? I think about movies. The movies that get a limited release and then a full release are the ones where we're like, I don't know if this is going to be good enough. Let's have a test run and see. So it's weird to me to try to do a game release that's like a slow, limited, putting it out there. So I don't think this would have been beneficial by any means. But if the game had been good, it wouldn't have backfired so hard, at least.
Yeah, definitely.
Can you think of a single game where a release schedule like this has benefited it? I'm not saying like that it hasn't hampered it, like, because EA's done this with a lot of their games. They do this with like with Madden and FIFA. They did it with Battlefield. Well, Battlefield I think again was like, I think it was more detrimental to Battlefield because it was just confusing. But like NBA 2K does this every year where a certain version of the game you can pick up earlier than other versions of the game. But and I don't think those games necessarily suffer from it, but with a new IP like this, I think for you to make a decision like this, it has to be that you see it's going to benefit the game in some way. And I can't think of a single example of a release schedule like this that benefited a game. And so EA's tried it twice now. The Battlefield 5 crowd, I'm sure, is way underwhelming. And I don't know anything about the quality of the game itself, but you miss your window, right? Now they've tried this again with Anthem. They've missed their window again, and I just think that I don't think we're going to see this come out again for EA. Like this kind of release schedule come out again for EA, especially after Apex.
Yeah, you don't think 3 is the magic number?
Dude, they didn't get to Titanfall 3 before learning their lessons.
True. Yeah, I honestly think that this is an approach that at most just confuses, like at best confuses people. Especially, like you said, for a new IP where you don't want to be confusing people as it is. For them to release this game in the way they have, they were either extremely confident about it and were misplaced in their confidence, or were, again, like Larry said, just aiming for pre-orders for a game they weren't 100% confident in. And either way, it's kind of, I don't really think that was the right approach.
I kept having to check when the game was coming out.
I know.
And if I wasn't just trying to stay informed for the sake of being able to discuss it, I wouldn't have. Like, if I was just a consumer, I wouldn't have been interested enough to keep up with when this game was actually going to release for me. And that may seem silly. Like, I just have to figure out what day is mine and remember it. But that shouldn't be a step that I have to go through.
Yeah.
And it's really weird to do this with a game as a service where, like, your ability to keep up with the pack is so important, you know, like where the loot grind is so important. And so, like, you have a release schedule like this, and it's already hard enough to get somebody to pick up your game a month after it's launched if you're like Destiny or something like that. Like, somebody who wants to get in a month later. Now you're setting your own schedule up to do that to players who want to pre-order the game and get their hands on it as quickly as possible. You're already setting them behind the 8 ball because they're not on this particular platform or a subscriber to this particular service. Like, live service games are built around the grind in the loop, and you damn yourself out of the gate by like giving people a head start on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, on top of all the flaws that are a part of Anthem as I know it, as what I've heard from people, there are already flaws with that loop is already. So I do want to pivot, and we were already sort of talking about this before, but let's talk a little bit about Anthem's future, because I think Anthem's future is predicated on a number of things. But do you think, we kind of talked about this with Fallout 76, and I will be honest, I think Fallout 76 as an example of this is way worse than anything Anthem has done. Both in terms of from what I see as the quality of the game, and also as I see what has gone outside the game. But do you think Anthem is beyond redemption at this point? I personally don't. But do you think any live services game is ever beyond redemption? Could Fallout 76 or could Anthem come back from the brink and save themselves, become a quality title?
Is that what you're defining redemption as, like becoming a quality title, or like what's your definition of redemption?
Yeah, so I guess that's a good point. I do think, well, becoming a quality title, that's one, but also maintaining an audience, I guess, and kind of bringing people in over time.
Okay, then I would say no.
Okay.
Because I think, like, and Fallout 76 is a pretty good case study, despite the fact that these missteps aren't quite as big, or aren't nearly as big. It's not exactly quite big. But Fallout 76, in a lot of ways, is a new IP. It's an existing franchise, but it's a completely new concept, right? And so your first couple weeks are a proof of that concept. And people, there's too much to play. Like the Division 2 open beta just got announced. It's coming in a couple days. Like that game releases in a few weeks. Like, Anthem's already going to have competition coming hot on its heels. And in a game that a lot of people expect to have far better execution than what Anthem does now, albeit it's like different play style or whatever, different execution of the idea. But Anthem, these first few weeks, is a proof of concept. And I think Fallout 76 is always going to have, not always, but for a while it'll have its small player base of people who just have figured out ways to make the game fun and for themselves. I don't know if Anthem is going to have the legs behind it to snowball down the hill and pick up people as it goes, like a Rainbow Six Siege or some sort of microcosm of Rainbow Six. It's hard to replicate that success, right?
It really is.
But I just don't think. I don't think EA is experienced enough in the games as a service space to create that kind of momentum. And so I think you're going to have the same thing. Like there's going to be a subreddit of people who really love Anthem and know how to get their own fun out of it and are really invested in their characters and the grind and all that sort of stuff. But I just think it's not impossible, but it's really hard to pick up new players when your launch is this like wonky.
I'm a little more optimistic. As long as we have this online games and services atmosphere where things can be added and changed, I think there's always a chance for redemption. And I think about Rainbow Six, I think about The Division, I think about No Man's Sky. Those were all games that launched pretty poorly, but ultimately they recaptured an audience. And I don't think this game is beyond that. I do think that you're right that they're more behind the 8 ball than a lot of these games have been, Luke. And I was actually going to make the same point with EA, but from a different angle. Like No Man's Sky worked toward redemption, but like for that studio, it was do or die. EA doesn't have to back Anthem to continue and to be successful. And
especially
I know
with Apex.
Yeah. I know they're not the ones developing the game, but they're going to have to be behind it if it's going to be successful, and they don't have to be. So I think it's really going to come down to how much EA is willing to invest in it and how quickly they can fix some of these things. I think Fallout 76, they could have had a better path toward a redemption, but they spent the first, when did that game come out? October?
No, November.
No. Yeah.
Okay. They spent much of the last 3 months just screwing up again and again. Now, if they approach Anthem and they patch things and do it well really quickly, I think there's a chance for it to succeed. But it's going to have to be more than that. I think it's going to have to look more like Destiny, where eventually there's a content drop that makes a big enough splash that people are like, oh, okay, this is worth coming back to and seeing.
Here's go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to end by saying I don't think that this is a game that can like slow burn its way back to redemption. I think it's going to have to, since it failed to make the splash right here, I think it'll have to make the splash later on.
Yeah. Here's the difference. Like, you think about these games with these redemption arcs, and we've named 3, right? Original Destiny, No Man's Sky, Rainbow Six Siege. Those are 3 of probably the biggest games of services that like had a rough start and then slowly built up to really great success. All of those had a hook, like a really solid hook. The original Destiny, it was the first of its kind in the genre. It had incredible gunplay from day one, like noteworthy gunplay, best gunplay available on consoles at the time, right? And so that was a hook that pulled people back in. No Man's Sky, like as a concept, was so novel and so interesting. This infinite universe that's fully explorable. Like as a concept, it had a hook that brought people back. Rainbow Six Siege, I think, had one of the most intelligent like marketing campaigns leading up to it, and it's this hardcore tactical shooter, very team based, like a real CS:GO kind of feel to it. And that was the hook that pulled people back in. Like, what is Anthem's hook that people are like, man, I want to be involved in this. I just need this other stuff around it to be good. Like, does it exist? The flying?
Well,
Superhero fantasy.
with what I'm seeing, like most of the complaints aren't coming down on the mechanics. So mechanically, it is a good game, and like I've seen so many people sing the praises of how fun it feels to fly through the game. So I do, as silly as it seems, I do think the flying can be that hook, but I don't know that it is a big enough hook.
Yeah. I think the hook is that superhero fantasy. That's what they've pitched it as from the start. What I will say is that the one way I can see it redeeming itself, maybe not the one way, but what I think it has over those other games that you mentioned, above the fact that that flying and being in an Iron Man suit is an integral part of the game, is what I think a lot of reviewers have been either mixed or actually lightly positive on, which is the story. I think it's gone kind of under the radar because a lot of the other things that the game are how that story is integrated with other parts of the game, and how obviously technical aspects of the game involving loading screens and pulling you out of the experience. But I think a lot of reviewers have actually been pretty positive about the narrative itself, despite the fact that it is involved with another aspect of the game, namely the multiplayer aspect, which it doesn't really jibe with. But I think if they're able to start to hone the balance between the narrative that they're telling and the narrative that we're telling, I think people love BioWare. Like, I love BioWare, and I love BioWare for its narrative. If they continue to plug away and invest in that narrative, I would jump back in. Like, the reason I jumped back into Destiny for Forsaken wasn't because I wanted to get new gear. It wasn't because I wanted to explore new places. It was because I heard that was the first time Bungie was telling a good story. And I understand that I am largely the exception to the rule when it comes to these games. But for a BioWare live service game, a lot of people came in expecting a BioWare level story. And I think a lot of them were, if not disappointed, at least they didn't get the story they were expecting, but they got a story that was actually surprisingly fleshed out. So I don't know. I think that can be a hook as well, but I think it's a hook that people aren't talking about just because it's still something they're fine tuning and kind of fixing.
Now, I will say this: they released their 90-day roadmap, and
Yes.
It's packed full of stuff. So they're coming out swinging. They're definitely going to make a go of it over these next few months. And on the other side of that, I guess we'll see how things are going to go.
Although a lot of that roadmap, it does involve kind of, I don't know what you call them, in like public event style stuff, I guess, in Destiny. So like evolving world stuff, and that stuff was largely repetitive in Destiny. So I don't know if it'll be any different in Anthem, but they've been pitching it as this constantly evolving world. So we'll see if they can actually deliver on that.
Yeah, I want to like this game, but like even just scrolling through this content, it feels like the whole, all right, we got to make it look like we're doing a lot. And I'm sure this stuff takes a ton of work, but you know, like you said, it's a lot of like public events are like, hey, we're going to release some new cosmetics and stuff. Like, it's nothing I'm sure there's earth-changing stuff in here, but it makes it seem like there's a whole lot more earth-changing stuff than is actually there.
Yeah, they haven't detailed. I know they plan that towards the end of that list, there's like 2 major chapters or like content drops that they haven't detailed yet. This is only like what is it? It's the first 90 days, so the first few months. So we'll see. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm interested to see where this game goes.
For the record, this is a game I want to like. Like, I really want to like this game, and I want to try it.
Yeah.
So.
And by the way, it is very fun to fly. Just based on the beta, that was the hook for me.
I may have to. I've got EA access, so I think I get 10 hours, and I may jump in just to feel it out. All right,
that's all I got. My
topic. Microsoft unveiled their HoloLens 2 yesterday during an event. It's going to be $3,500. It's available for pre-order. It's going to ship later this year. It comes with some improvements like greater field of vision, a couple other things, but it doesn't come with an explanation of what the hell happened to HoloLens 1. And so I saw, I think it was either Saturday night or yesterday morning, I got like a news alert on my phone that was like, Microsoft expected to announce HoloLens 2, and I was like, wait, what? Did we like get a full product release for HoloLens 1. So for those uninformed, HoloLens is an augmented reality device, which means it puts like computer generated images over top of the real world. It's like it looks like a VR headset, but you're not like fully enclosed in this thing. So it projects it onto your actual world. Microsoft talked about it during E3 2015, and then again in 2016, correct?
There were 2 years. So
and showed like these gaming applications. The one I specifically remember is where somebody was looking at like a coffee table and they were playing Minecraft on this coffee table in augmented reality. And then they slowly started to not really slowly. They pulled the ripcord and like just completely backed away from the HoloLens discussion. And now here we are. So my question to you guys is, what happened? Why didn't we see this thing get released like commercially?
I genuinely have no idea. Like part of me wants to think that they saw other VR kind of release and fizzle out, but HoloLens should have released in the same window. So I don't think that was it. It seems like they made that decision before the other VR approaches had the opportunity to get out there and sort of flop. So I have no idea.
Yeah. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they just saw, maybe they didn't see it as a consumer item. Maybe they just saw it as they saw its uses and it saw it as a technology as being more profitable in other sectors. Obviously, Microsoft has its fingers in a lot of pots. But I'd be more inclined to believe that if they had seen the success or failure of other VR products like PSVR or Oculus or what's the HTC
Vive.
Yeah. So I'm a little bit torn too, but they've definitely gone in the direction of not making it a consumer item so far. They're definitely just traveling down that wormhole, and I can't blame them based on the way that people have responded to other VR products.
All right.
And the way the Kinect went.
Yeah.
It really wasn't appreciated by the gaming community, though they found other applications outside of gaming for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. I think I've got the answer here. I do think it's multifaceted as these things often are. And I think you've hit on several of them. I think, first of all, there was a realization with the Xbox following the botched announcement of the Xbox One, following, backing out the Kinect from the packaging, all that sort of stuff, and just killing off the Kinect altogether. I think that there was this realization from Microsoft that the Xbox needed to be a console, and that's it. We don't need to bifurcate our focus across all these different peripherals, trying to push those and create a market for them. We need to just focus on our box and get that to where we want it to be. And so they started pushing R&D into like the development of the Xbox One X and moving it away from the gaming application of the HoloLens, just because the messaging, it'd be hard to tie in that messaging to this renewed focus in just the console as a gaming unit. So I think that's a part of it. I think also there was some retrospect on the Kinect, and when the Kinect was released for the Xbox 360, like the OG Kinect, it wasn't just a matter of like, oh, we're going to be able to play like tennis with our friends on this console, or like there were actually some augmented reality applications for the Kinect. There was when they first showcased it, they showed like a virtual fitting room. So like you'd be able to shop a catalog of clothing and stand in front of your Kinect, and it would like put the clothing on you so that you could preview it before you ordered. Things like that. There were a lot of different medical applications for it as well. There were a lot of accessibility applications for it. I actually wrote a really long article for Zam.com, which I don't think exists anymore, about all of like the weird applications for the Kinect. And I think Xbox saw it as an educational tool, as a medical device, an accessibility tool, all these different things. But then it got pigeonholed into just this gaming space, and people started to connect the Kinect with gaming in the same way that people connected like motion controls to the Wii. And that was never the intention for the Kinect. It was a part of it, but not the full focus. And I think it cut into the profitability of that unit. And when they tried to put pedal to the metal and make it a gaming peripheral and really tie it into make it an integral part to the Xbox One experience, it completely backfired on them. And so I think there was some just skittishness in making the HoloLens a gaming peripheral because of how badly the Kinect bombed in that space. I also think the other thing is they couldn't get the price down. Looking at the price of the HoloLens units, up around like the $5,000 mark, like I don't see a way that you can. And then seeing the price point of all these other headsets that were coming out, outside of like the Vive, which I think was like $1,500 when it released, but all these others getting down into the thousand, like less than $1,000 to the PSVR that was $500. I just think like price point wise, they realized we can't compete in this space. I'm also curious if the Xbox One was even going to be capable of running a lot of AR applications beyond what they had already just shown us. If like they had already kind of tapped out the potential, because PSVR struggles, not struggles, but it's a noticeably worse experience on the original PS4 than it is even on the PS4 Pro. So you have to imagine they were running into some limitations there. So I think it's like a multi-layered thing, but it still just feels weird. Like, I don't know if we're ever going to see HoloLens coming into a gaming application because of this. Do you?
No, I don't think so. I think it seems like it'd be much more of a developer tool than I don't think, at this point, I doubt we're going to see HoloLens 1. I also doubt we're probably going to see HoloLens 2. I just think I do generally think that the applications of this technology are far greater outside of gaming and probably far more profitable outside of gaming. So yeah, like you said, I think they've sort of learned their lesson in terms of pigeonholing themselves into one category. Mm-hmm. So I doubt we'll ever see people walking the streets with HoloLens 2 on or anything like that.
And I think you're right also that the price point is the big hurdle, especially in gaming. I'm not going to buy a peripheral that I could buy multiple consoles for.
Yeah. I also have one other thought as far as its application. I don't think Microsoft right now can get HoloLens to a lower price point to make it more like consumer friendly, but I also don't think they want to.
Yeah.
And so I was actually reading a Reddit thread, and it wasn't specifically talking about this, but so the Washington Post released an article today about how Microsoft workers are asking Microsoft, like the 50 employees for Microsoft signed an open letter to the head of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, in protest to a military contract that Microsoft had signed in regards to the HoloLens headset, right? And we can kind of talk about the merits of that and the reactions to it and how we feel about it. But for the sake of the conversation we're having now, this article was posted on Reddit, and the comment thread was talking about how the military has been using Xbox 360 controllers to pilot drones for like a long time now. Mm-hmm. And these are just things that they can buy and use, outside of the on-box description of what they're supposed to be used for. And they're buying them, you can buy an Xbox 360 controller now for like $20. Whereas if you specialize this sort of stuff, like, I'm sure that this headset is not worth $3,500. I'm sure the margins on this thing are just ridiculous at that price. But who's going to pay that price for it? Medical institutions, the military, the U.S. government. Like, they're willing to pay these premiums for this technology and pay this ridiculously bloated price point on it. And so I think it's like, well, if we take the same technology and work our asses off to get this around the $500 price point, we're going to lose out on this hugely profitable contract that we've had where we're selling these things at like 500% markups, right? And so I think there's a little bit of like number play that's going on with this thing too. And I just, like you said, Cody, they realize that the bread and butter for the money making is going to be in these private contracts with these outside people, and that the gaming application is not going to nearly be as lucrative. It's a lot riskier, especially now that they do have the evidence of how much these VR headsets have struggled in that space.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So outside of Microsoft, right? We've already mentioned like the stumbling blocks for VR. Do you think that there is, like, we saw Google Glass come and go? HoloLens doesn't look like it's ever going to make a consumer approach. Like, AR is something that a lot of people were excited about. Do we see AR ever becoming like a mainstream thing that people will, from a headset standpoint, that it'll hit the market and gain traction?
I think it will. I think it's just a matter of it's a little ahead of its time. And I think Google Glass was a really a bigger example of that, because their product was it was under $2,000, and it wasn't quite AR, but it was a wearable computer that you could just have access to at any time. It was a pretty neat piece of technology, but people who wore it were referred to as glass holes, and it failed. I think more so because it was a social stigma to be wearing the Google Glass than anything else, because it was just weird. But I think having that technology on your head now is a lot less weird than it was in 2012. And 7 years from now, I suspect that it won't be weird at all. And so I imagine that we're going to see this kind of technology in a lot of fields. Maybe we won't get to where people are just wearing it around, walking up the street, but I can see your doctor coming in, your surgeon wearing it. I could see a mechanic, having the specs pulled up to a car that he's not super familiar with, or, any number of uses. A firefighter, you got a heads-up display mapping the house and where we think the person inside is. Like, there are all kinds of amazing potential uses for it, and I'm sure that we're going to see it sooner or later. I think it's just a thing of it's arrived a little early to be accepted by us. It's still weird.
Again, yeah, I would agree. I think the most immediate applications and the most pressing applications are outside of just consumer use, and so you'll definitely see it used. You already see it used in the medical field. It's 100% already in a lot of Ivy Leagues, and in a lot of educational institutions. I do think, despite the fact that it's not wearable, I do think Pokemon Go went a long way towards teaching people what AR is and what it can do, despite the fact that it might seem silly and trivial to a lot of people. A lot of people played it, and a lot of people hadn't been exposed to that kind of storytelling or that kind of experience before. So I think a lot more people are used to the idea of it. They might not be used to the idea of it being ever present in their lives or kind of walking around with it. But yeah, again, I think it's just going to take time for consumers to actually get used to it. I think it will be a thing, but the social stigma, I think it's a good thing that you brought up the social stigma attached to Google Glass, because I think that's kind of present with any time that a new kind of either wearable fad or a new kind of like way of experiencing the world. That sounds broad, but like anytime something like that is introduced, there's always kind of a little bit of hesitance to accept it, or a little bit of shirking away from it, especially if the main barrier to entry with technology, like it often is price. But I think at some point people will be walking around with maybe like a little chip there, like the Star Trek thing or something like that. Mm-hmm. More like Black Mirror, I guess. But
yeah, I think with VR, like, it's a little bit more of a known quantity. Like, I'm sure that there are things that are in concept that I won't ever be. I'm not able to imagine at the time. But for the most part, like, we know that VR is this thing to like escape the location you're in currently to do something else, right? Whether that's to play a game, attend a concert, watch a basketball game. Like, the VR thing is a relatively known quantity, whereas like AR has infinite numbers of applications, I believe, that can really like pick up steam from a news story of like, oh, check out this cool application that allows you to do this, this, and this on your AR headset. So like, there's going to constantly be this like drip of concepts that constantly pull us back to the idea. And so I do agree, like this is ahead of its time, and that when we get to the point where these things can be realized in a way that, like, I almost said a mall kiosk. That's not, we don't really have those anymore, but you know, like where you can stand somewhere like and have the experience, right? Like it, like get a taste of the experience. It's going to be one of those things that takes off and people are like, man, that's super useful. And there's just going to be a long list where there's overlap for everybody, where it's like, I may not need these 10 applications, but this one down here is going to be completely life-changing for me. You know, whether that's like, I'm out wherever I go, if I'm looking at like food, it tells me how many calories are in something, right? Like,
maybe you go to a ball game and you can rent the headsets there, and the stuff that you only get when you're watching on TV, you can actually have in the stadium. Like they're putting the lines on the field, and you can look at a player and pull up the stats for that player while you're watching, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, I still think GPS would be an extremely useful application for that too, because I hate looking at my mom look down at the phone to try to just like see where she's going, and I know a lot of people do that. So like just having like the GTA vision of seeing like the line go out from you and seeing where you can go would be kind of cool. Mm-hmm. Be super useful.
Yeah. See, and like we're just three assholes on a small show, like just thinking of cool ideas, right? Like there are people who get paid to sit there and think about nothing but this for 40 hours a week, right? And you can only imagine the cool things that they're conceptualizing, that they're coming up with. And so I don't think we've seen the end of the AR pursuit. I think it has a chance to be far more lucrative even than the virtual reality space. I just don't think Microsoft's going to be the one to deliver it to us anytime soon because of, you know, this military contract and that sort of stuff. I did want to give you guys an opportunity before we move on to touch on that story that I linked in here, because it's loosely, I mean, it's connected to the HoloLens story, which is loosely connected to gaming. So I didn't want to make too big a point out of this, but I figured since it's in there, give you guys a chance to react to the story of the employees submitting the open letter.
Go ahead, Larry.
I go back and forth on whether I agree with the employees or not, just from the perspective of, like, I can see it from the Microsoft higher-ups. We can develop this for the military and make money off of it, or they can buy it off the discount rack 10 years from now and use it anyway. But all this stuff just super weirds me out. Like, I think this is definitely the direction we're going, and I hate it. Like, we've already like accepted that we're constantly under surveillance, and we even help out with that. Like, no matter where you are in public, you can just guarantee that you're on somebody's camera somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. And the idea of like the military, it's just like an unending arms race, right? This stuff only gets worse and worse. And I just I hope there are people out there that are constantly learning how to undercut it and sharing that technology with the rest of us. And what this actually made me think of, I don't know what made me connect this in my mind, but it made me think of this article I'd read a while back from The Atlantic called Anti-Surveillance Camouflage for Your Face. In a world of increasingly sophisticated facial recognition technology, a drastic technique can throw the machines off your trail. And there's a makeup style. I encourage people to look this up because it's really interesting to me. It's called CV Dazzle, which is short for Computer Vision Dazzle. And there's just a particular way you can paint these shapes on your face. And it's hilarious to me because it looks very futuristic, steampunk-esque. But you basically you shade in the portions of your face that a computer uses to figure out that it's a face, and then they can't track you. So we need more of that in the world as it inevitably moves toward this computerized world where soldiers are wearing computers on their faces to find me more easily.
All I'll say is that I am generally inclined to agree with the employees, although I don't think that ultimately any letter they sign will cause Microsoft to dissolve this partnership. I think it mentions in the article that this has happened before at Microsoft, and Microsoft's response is basically, if you don't agree with the project, how we're using the project that you're working on, we'll be willing to move you to another project. We're not going to stop working on this project. Which is the same way Amazon deals with it, the same way all these companies deal with it. They all have partnerships with companies, organizations that their employees don't agree with, and unfortunately, employees don't have much voice in what their employer is doing.
Except for Google, right?
Except for Google, yeah, which is surprising.
Of all the companies that people,
Yeah.
like seriously, the only time that Google's ever listened to their employees,
Yeah, exactly,
was regarding facial recognition technology for surveillance. Now, I'm inclined to agree with the employees too. I think one of the big things that, I'll just read a little section. It says, writing to chief executive, is it Satya Nadella? Is that how you say it?
I don't know.
Anyway, more than 50 workers said the devices would be, quote, turning warfare into a simulated video game, end quote. And I think that like, this has less to do with the profiteering and more to do with just like the philosophy of war, right? Under Barack Obama, we committed we carried out the most unmanned drone strikes without declaring war on any country under President Obama, right? And there's this disconnect between what we can do without putting a human being in harm's way and what we consider to be warfare. That like these drone strikes aren't acts of war, when in reality that like how can they not be? And so
they're just little killing, not war killing.
Yeah. The more separation we put between ourselves and the actual like pulling of the trigger, or the more distance we can put between ourselves and the bodies we're laying in waste, I think the easier it becomes for people to make these decisions, right? And you start doing these things in a simulated like AR environment where you're thousands of miles away from the people that you're killing. Like, there's a societal and philosophical and social and emotional impact that carries on people, that has on people. And I do think that if I were an employee developing that technology, that would be the last way I would want to see it used as well. Yeah. So yes, I agree.
I read an interesting article a few years back. I think it was from Wired, but it was just about the rate of PTSD among drone pilots. So I think a lot of people maybe expected that they wouldn't suffer from that quite as much, but it is still a big issue for them. But for the higher ups, the people deciding who we're dropping bombs on, like it is easier for them to make that call. If we had been at war in all these countries that we've been carrying secret drone strikes out on with troops on the ground all this time, like there would have been enough public backlash that we would have backed out of it. And so I'm just agreeing with you. The more barriers we put between us actually being there, the less we realize what we're actually doing, the less we hesitate to do it. And beyond that, just I know some people will think it's kind of silly, but the classic sci-fi terror of this kind of stuff, like Terminator or Eagle Eye, right? As long as we have machines that are designed for and capable of killing, there exists the possibility that somebody designs that machine to just go off or they accidentally design the machine in such a way that it can go off and do whatever it wants to do. And that kind of creeps me out too. This particular technology, like I have less concerns about it. Just the way it's going to be used, giving troops a heads up display, like it's got some neat uses. And it's not quite as nefarious as drones as far as I can see it. But the more tech we throw, I don't know. It's like I said earlier, just nonstop arms race, adding more and more in, and you never know what's going to lead to what next step.
Yeah, it just sets kind of a dangerous precedent. And I agree with you, Luke. I think the implications of it are beyond just kind of training exercises. I think there's the chilling potential for even more of a disconnect between the person you're actually firing on and your own self. And I think a lot of I read that same article, Larry, about the drone pilots, and the kind of PTSD they suffer from is interesting. Obviously, they experience it in their own way, but there's a weird kind of disconnect, and I think a lot of soldiers are still getting used to that. It's already hard enough for them to. I think there should be a certain amount of accountability, and there should be a moral quandary associated with the act of killing another person, even if you do label them your enemy. And as someone who opposes war in general, I think making it easier for higher ups to shirk responsibility and press that button or pull that trigger, or have others press that button or pull that trigger is very disturbing to me.
I know we've been on this topic for a while, but there's one more quote I want to pull out. I meant to bring this up. This is the quote that got me thinking in the direction I was thinking. It was from Alex Kipman, Microsoft's technical fellow who heads the HoloLens project. He said, quote, "The goal is these things transform humans," end quote. And that is just the creepiest sentence I could have possibly read.
All right. I think that's a good note to move on from. But before we cause some sleepless nights. All right, Larry, what is your topic?
Joke's on you. I don't sleep anyway because Apex Legends came out.
That's true.
My topic is much like many of the topics I bring. You guys bring the biggest gaming news stories from the week, and I bring old news most of the time. And in many ways, this is the same sort of thing. We've talked about all this before, but rumors have intensified. We have more outlets reporting things, and it just seems like things are moving more solidly in directions that have been speculated.
Hey, to give yourself some credit, all of this stuff did develop this week.
It's true.
It was predicated on rumors that are quite old, but what we're going to talk about today did happen in the last 7 days. So great job, Larry.
Well, thanks. I'm not sure how to say the name of this French studio, Jeux Video, Jeux. Any of you take French?
That'd be Joe. Yeah.
Jeux Video. So they've backed the rumor that Microsoft will be releasing 2 consoles this go around, one being discless and focused on digital only, and one featuring a disc and a little bit more feature wise, hardware wise. And the thing that I hadn't heard yet, and I may be wrong on this, maybe just something I hadn't noticed, but the thing that I think has been added to the rumor is that both of these consoles will be revealed this year at E3 by Microsoft. So that's coming. That is rumored to be coming.
Can you please say their code names? Because I love the code names.
One is Scarlet, right? Or is that not anymore?
No, I think it's Lockhart and Anaconda.
Oh, Lockhart and Anaconda. Yeah. I hope that's just the marketing name too. The Xbox Lockhart and the Xbox Anaconda. Yeah.
I love Lockhart. That's awesome.
So those rumors amplified this week. And the other interesting thing to me as a big fan of Halo is the rumors now include that Halo Infinite will be a primary title on these new consoles, and that we're going to see some big changes to the Halo formula, where they're going to be bringing in some RPG elements and some decisions where you can actually impact the world. And I'm not sure what exactly that's going to look like. That's about the extent that we've got information on here. But I just have a few questions to cover, which is great because this show's running long. My first one comes from this rumor that these things are going to be brought up at E3. It seems like Microsoft is the last major player that is really heavily emphasizing E3. So as others are de-emphasizing E3, do you think that Microsoft's continued presence is a good thing, or are they just living in the past?
Hell no. This is a great thing for Microsoft. Like, Microsoft is taking a known space that people are clearing out of and saying, we can spread out our shit. This is like you shared an apartment with 2 of your closest friends, and then they all of a sudden got married, moved out, started their own lives, and you're like, wait a minute. I've got this whole space to myself. Like, I'm going to make one of these a music room. I'm going to make one of these a game room. Like, this is a huge deal for Microsoft to be able to take an event that people already know and that people that are disconnected from the daily news cycle of video games we'll continue to look forward to, not knowing that, oh, well, Sony's not going to have a presence there, not knowing the big movements the big changes that have been made. And so people are going to tune into this, and then they're going to just get a full frontal, smacking of Xbox through the entire week. And that's a great thing for Xbox. I think it's also interesting that if the rumor is correct that they are going to reveal this for the very first time at E3, that's not Microsoft's MO generally. The Xbox One, yes, we got details about the Xbox One at E3, but it was revealed a month or two prior at another event, right? And so for Microsoft to feel like they're not going to get drowned out by a bunch of news that's taking place during E3 to where they can reveal this software full-fledged, I think is a big deal. The best part's going to be when they set all these plans in motion, and then PS4's and then Sony's like, yeah, we're going to do our event during E3.
Yeah, this is nothing but good for Microsoft, right? It's essentially they're already doing that Xbox event that they did in the fall. That was not geared towards revealing new shit. It was just them doing their thing. It was like a fan event. They've essentially made E3, or they haven't made E3. Everybody else has made E3 into another Xbox event for them. It's fantastic for them. They just get to lay out on the couch, take their time, do their thing. And so, well, I don't think it's normal for them to reveal consoles at E3, or at least for the last, they didn't with the Xbox One. I think most people were either rumors were swirling, or most people had assumed that consoles would be revealed at this upcoming E3, despite this was before Sony and Nintendo had kind of ditched it. But Sony will likely be revealing theirs around the same time, whether they want to or not now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with that. So I won't elaborate further. As these rumors are ramping up, seeing more people putting them forth now, how sold are you on the accuracy of these console rumors? Do you think this is 100% what's going to happen? Or are you just sold, what parts of this do you think are true, and where are you maybe not so certain?
Well, let's pull Cody in here first, because I'm curious. You've worked at Game Informer, which is where this story comes from. How do they vet these reports before deciding okay, we're gonna write this up?
So Game Informer doesn't usually run with rumors. If they do, it's only if it's been corroborated by other sources that have a known track record of being somewhat correct or having journalistic integrity. And both of the sources they cite, the French site is a very well known within Europe, not so much here, but it's very well known as being has a lot of connections in the industry. It's known for proper reporting in the industry as well. And what was the other one? Thurrott, which had originally,
that was the Scarlet website. Yeah.
They had originally kind of reported on those rumors. So Game Informer is usually pretty hesitant, and I won't pretend to speak for them, but at least in my experience there, they were pretty hesitant to report on any rumors that we came at them with. And I know Imran Khan, he's their news editor and kind of oversees news there. He's great at his job. He knows what he's doing. He's reported on a bunch of stuff like this before, so I'm inclined to trust his reporting and his eye for news. So, ultimately, this is still based on rumors, maybe not their own rumors and reports from other sites, but I'm inclined to believe the vast majority of what's in here, mostly because we've heard this messaging for months at this point. We have gotten a sense that this is the direction that Microsoft and Xbox is moving. And although they didn't cite a price point, that was kind of one of the details that wasn't in there. They did say, and you can correct me, Larry, the discless digital version is kind of like the entry level, and then the other version of it is the higher end, kind of like Xbox One X version of the console. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So they've kind of already established that as a pattern of release. It's something that they're willing to invest in. So I'm inclined to believe most of this stuff. I guess I'm still a little bit hesitant on the Halo stuff. Not as hesitant as in I don't buy into it as a gamer. More hesitant, less inclined to believe that it will launch on those consoles, because we really haven't seen anything of it. But E3 is still this summer, so we'll see if they. I imagine if they reveal those consoles at E3, Halo will also be a massive part of that push.
Mm-hmm. I'm all in on these rumors. Like the consoles themselves, we've just heard so much about it that I think that's definitely happening. Although the E3 stuff is surprising, you're right that this is more or less turning into a Microsoft event. So they've got a big open arena to drop that news. That makes sense to me. And I'm even on board with the Halo rumors. I've been hoping that this is going to be a launch title. It's been so long since we've had a Halo game, and over 343 had been, in as far as I had noticed anyway, they'd been kind of quiet for a while. But over the last few months, I've been seeing more and more coming out of them discussing Halo ever since that big Master Chief Collection patch. And it could just be that, and that's why I'm seeing more from them. But I get the feeling that we're having this trickle of Halo into the gaming stream again, just in preparation for what we're going to be seeing from Halo Infinite. So I'm optimistic that this will be a launch title for these consoles. And I guess I shouldn't be optimistic, because that means I'll have to buy it at launch when it's most expensive.
Yeah, I buy into the Halo rumor, especially given the number of studios that Microsoft has acquired. I think that they want to set the tone out of the gate that they're focused on first-party exclusive experiences on their new console, and what better way to do that than with Halo? Especially if it's sort of a reconceptualized Halo, like not completely overhauled by any means, but in like some of the ways that have been rumored. I just think like tonally you're setting yourself on the right foot by saying, hey, biggest franchise, the only console you can play it on is right here. Like, here it is. And then you get to trickle out all of these other studios games that you've been acquiring. So I buy into that. I've been sold on these console rumors for quite some time, as far as the discless and all that. I don't know how sold I am on it working. I think that if they can get their messaging straight and the advertising is good and clear, I think it can be successful. But I also think you run the risk of just like, oh, there's these two products, and I already feel like I'm already kind of making a succession by buying this one because it's quote unquote entry level. Like, I feel like there needs to either be one choice or three, right? Like, there either needs to be, this is our console, or it needs to be, this is our Mac Daddy console, this is our starter console, and this is our like Xbox One S style, right? Where like you still got the disc, it's still everything you're looking for. It's that approachable $400 price mark or whatever it is. I just think if you have like, hey, here's this one for $250 or this one for like $500, I think you're already like drawing a line in the sand for some people.
I think they probably just want to avoid, like, 3 options can get a little confusing.
Mm-hmm.
2, at least, you kind of, 2, it's a 50-50 shot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I do think the naming, whatever they choose in terms of naming, will go a long clarifying what they hope to inform people of.
But we also
Obviously,
know it's going to suck, right?
Yeah, the naming is going to suck. I would prefer Lockhart and Anaconda, which tells you absolutely nothing about the consoles whatsoever, over whatever they're going to.
I hope those are the names and also a description of the shape of the console.
Yes.
So the Anaconda is the primary console because it's like 10 feet long and you coil it around your TV stand.
What does the Lockhart look like?
It's a heart-shaped box with
Okay.
a little lock. You have to have
Alright.
the key to open it.
Still a box.
Yeah.
All right. Is that it for you, Larry?
I do want to also point out, even though I didn't put it in the show notes, that Joe Video they also believe that Ninja Theory's first game for Microsoft is going to have a 2020 release as well. So
That makes
something
a lot
else
of
to be
sense,
looking
too.
out for.
based on, I think Hellblade came out 2017. So it's been a good amount of time.
Yeah, that sounds right. All right, guys. Let's move on to two truths and a gaming lie. I don't know why I throw the word gaming in the middle of it, but that's just what it's called. It's been a while, so let me remind everybody how this works. I'm going to read some statements, and then I'm going to win a point. That's how this game has worked. So I've got a game here. Everyone's probably heard of it. I've got 3 facts about this game. 2 of them are truthful. 1 of them is a lie. Our 2 expert panelists here are going to have to determine which one is a lie. If neither of them get it correct, I get a point, and they get to question all of the statements that our friendship is based on. So
I don't believe any of it's real, so nothing changes.
That good a liar. All right. This week's game, Max Payne 3. Anyone heard of it?
I've heard of it.
All right. 9 years after the events of we're not getting into this is just the description for the game. This game released in 2011. 9 years after the events of Max Payne 2, the fall of Max Payne, Max finds himself living a degenerative lifestyle, addicted to painkillers and alcohol in the city of Sao Paulo, Brazil, while trying to forget the past that haunts him. I don't know what they're talking about. Sounds like the dream. Employed by real estate mogul Rodrigo Branco, Max... What the fuck are these names? Max works in private security protecting the wealthy Branco family. But as things go wrong and Rodrigo's wife Fabiana is kidnapped, Max is forced into a deadly new conflict while relying on the abilities he attained from the experience of the past he left behind. All right, so that's the game. Here are the 3 facts. You got to tell me which one is false. Number 1. Before its release, Rockstar announced via Twitter that by writing fan tweets to Rockstar's Max Payne 3 page, fans would have a chance to get their facial likeness included in the Max Payne 3 multiplayer mode. All right. Number 2. Max Payne 3 was the first and last game to use a lighting engine known as Gamma Belt. While the engine achieved fantastic results, it caused serious issues bricking some Radeon GPUs. Number 3, in Chapter 9, there is a TV that the player can switch on to see a news report of the incident Max has just been through. Included in the report is a sketch of Max's face based on the first Max Payne game. All right, so we have the fan facial scan, the bricking lighting engine, or the television with the first Max Payne game likeness. I can't remember who went first the last time because it's been literal ages. So I'm going to hand it to Larry first. Larry, which one do you think is the false statement?
I'm going to say the first one is the false statement.
All right,
it
the
seems
one
the most
about
outlandish to me.
Writing fan tweets.
Yeah.
All right, Codsworth.
I was also going to go with the first one, but now that would be boring. What was the second one?
Max Payne 3 was the first and last game to use a lighting engine known as... Okay. Do you need any more than that?
No, I'm good. Fuck it. I'll go with the second one. Why not?
All right.
My first instinct is to go with the first, but...
All right. We do finally have somebody getting on the board this week outside of myself, who is up 3-0. But now it is 3-1-0, and Cody has earned himself his first point of the game.
Hey...
Although, if you would have just went with your gut instinct, if we would have done a 3-2-1, give me your answer, I'd have got another point. So I'm really good at this game. I'm running out of ideas, though.
So that actually happened. Some fans got their faces scanned into this game.
Now, whether or not it happened is one thing, but they announced that it could happen.
Yeah, how many people had Twitter in 2011?
All right. So I'm still up 3 to Cody's 1 to Larry's 0. Larry, you'll have a chance next week to get on the board. But for now, let's get out of here. Larry, who are you? Where can people find you? And what will you not be tweeting about this week because you're still on your social media hiatus?
I'm Larry. You can find me on Twitter at LairHuntsZombies, and I won't be tweeting about Apex Legends. I'll play it.
Living it.
I live Apex.
All right, Cody.
I'm Cody Melocline. You can find me on Twitter at ProElectioneer. Although you'll probably read more of my tweets on the Alexandria Times Twitter page than on my own personal page because I'm tweeting more from that than I am my personal page.
I've always been terrified of having a job where I had to regularly run someone else's Twitter. Just, I would be the guy that forgets to switch over and tweet something out later from my professional account. So I don't envy you.
All right. My name is Luke Croft. You can find me on Twitter at Hoagie_OW. And I'm really just going to be telling you where you can find all of the Overwatch League talents wardrobe items online if you're interested in purchasing them. I've had 2 tweets now get very good engagement because I'm just saying, hey, do you like Mitch Leslie's shirt? Here's a link on Amazon to buy it. Hey, you like Zoe's shoes? Here's a link to buy them. So it's my new strategy on Twitter. That's pretty much all I'm going to be doing.
Your strategy is to become a Twitter whore.
Exactly. Also, I'm working on an article about how much you should love the Chengdu Hunters if you really, really hate goats. All right? So be on the lookout for that. But this is PvA Radio. We get together every week over here on twitch.tv/PvA Radio at 9 p.m. on Mondays. Talk about the 3 biggest gaming news stories of the week. It's your collaborative audio feature article. Larry, what are they supposed to do?
Tattoo it to your forehead.
Oh, so Larry was not going as intense as Cody. But now he's going all out. It goes on the forehead, guys.
On the forehead.
Much like
directly to forehead.
I was about to do it. If you can't catch us live, you can find us on podcast services and YouTube. Just search PvA Radio. We'll pop right up for you. Wherever you're listening to us, follow, subscribe, leave us a review. Larry will read it out in a weird accent if you do that. But other than that, until next week, you guys, we love you. Goodbye.
Why, that's the second biggest monkey head I've ever seen.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
Can I ever tell you what the definition of insanity is?